Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be looking at the Glock 34. I have a Generation 3 and a Generation 4 here. They are very similar, but there are some differences, and we'll take a closer look at those in a little bit. The Glock 34 is a very underrated handgun as far as the Glock family goes, in my opinion. A lot of people steer away from it because it is a larger handgun. The grip and frame, so to speak, are the same size as the Glock 17. And the capacity is the same. The Glock 34 is chambered in 9mm, so you're going to get that 17 plus 1 in your handgun. But the barrel and the slide are longer. The Glock 17 has a 4.5-inch barrel, and the Glock 34 has a barrel length just over 5 inches. This is going to give you a greater sight radius, which is an advantage in my opinion. The Glock 34 is considered a competition-style handgun, but it could be easily rolled into a self-defense capacity or a home defense, you name it, because of some of the advantages we'll go over today. So I'm going to bring the camera closer and let's look at some of the specs and differences between the Gen 3 and 4. And as always, at the end of the video, if you guys have any questions about it, leave them in the comments. Alright guys, like I said, these are chambered. The Glock 34 is chambered in 9mm. They are very soft shooting, which is to be expected for a 9mm. The longer sight radius is very forgiving for more distance shots. I'll roll in some footage of me shooting at 50 and 100 yards. I'm not the best shot in the world, but I was able to make hits at 50 and 100 with the Glock 34. Right here is the Generation 3, and right here is the Generation 4. Like I said, there are some differences in the two generations, and this goes across the board with all of the Glock models from Generation 3 to Generation 4. They changed some things up, but generally they're the same gun. The Generation 3 comes from the factory with extended controls. It's going to have an extended slide stop and extended mag release. The sights from the factory are plastic, which is a crying shame, as we all know, but the rear is adjustable. If you decide by some miracle that you want to keep the plastic sights, that is an added advantage to have an adjustable rear, but I do not recommend keeping these. I would throw these out immediately. As you can see, there is a slide cut in the top of the slide, which takes a little bit of weight out of it. Some people would say, oh, well, you're going to get dirt and grime in there and stuff like that. Yeah, you do, but trust me, it doesn't affect this gun at all. The barrel length is just over 5 inches. All right, let me give you guys a look at the Generation 4. Same plastic sights, same extended slide stop, but they put in a lower profile Gen 4 mag release. I really like that. This is what I'd go for right here. I don't like the extended on the Gen 3. The grip texture is different, and the size of the grip is a little different. These are thinner, I feel like. Generation 4 grips are thinner than the Generation 3. The trigger on the Glock 34 is a standard 5.5 to 6 pound trigger. Like all Glock models, nothing special coming out of the factory, just a standard stock Glock trigger. Alright, let's take a look at the inside of the slide. Generation 3, Generation 4. The recoil spring is different in the Generation 3 to 4. The 4 has a dual recoil spring. This is supposed to aid in longevity of the recoil spring. I don't know if that's true or not, but you can definitely tell it's beefier. I've never had a problem with the Gen 3 recoil springs. So those are some differences between the two generations. Not much to really separate them. I mean, it's mostly aesthetic besides the recoil spring, of course, and they shoot and feel pretty much the same. The Glock 34 handles really nice. Very soft recoil impulse. The longer sight radius is an advantage. This is not a gun I can recommend concealed carrying, obviously for the longer barrel and slide. It pokes down into your leg a little bit because of the length of it when you sit down. But As far as a gun that you would carry outside the waistband, it's a great choice. It's not just a competition gun, in my opinion. It could be used as a home defense gun, or if you do carry outside the waistband for personal protection and you have a garment that lays over it, it could totally do that. I mean, if we think about it, most 1911 slides and barrels are 5 inches. And the Glock is right there. The Glock 34 is right there with the same dimensions. So it's definitely doable. Is it ideal? Probably not. Alright, now that we went over some of the differences in the two generations, I'm going to tell you guys what I would change about them. And this goes for both generations. I don't care if you get a Generation 3 or a Generation 4. I would change this for both generations. Okay, starting off, I would definitely change the sights. Duh. The one I shot in the video is Phil's. He used a blacked out rear with a fiber optic front. I think that is the best option for this particular model. If you're going to roll it into a competitive application, that's definitely the best option for sights. That high-vis fiber optic front, easy to pick up, and the blacked out rear isn't distracting. I would change out the mag release. I prefer the Vickers mag release on the Generation 4, and on the Generation 3, I would just go with a lower profile mag release. Like I said, this one sticks out a little bit too far. The one that comes from the factory hangs out a little bit too far and digs into my palm. Could be just the way I grip the gun. For some of you out there, it might not be a problem. I would change the slide stop on these 34s. The extended one doesn't do me any favors. I find that when I grip the gun, my hand lays on top of the slide stop, and it prohibits the slide from locking back on last round. So I'm constantly tapping and racking the gun to make sure it's not a malfunction, and it usually turns out, okay, the gun's just empty and the slide didn't lock back. So I would go with the flush slide stop on the 34. And lastly, I would retexture the frame. The texture on these two guns, grip texture, is fine. It'll do the job, but it's not ideal for me. I would retexture it with something a little bit more aggressive so that when my hands sweat or if they're wet for any other reason, I can just hold on to this gun a little better. It just makes the firearm more ergonomic. So lastly, I'd retexture it. Alright guys, there you go. Quick look at the Glock 34. Great handguns, Gen 3 or 4, whatever your preference is. These guns have been proven time and time again in competition and some in the law enforcement arena. I really enjoy them, obviously after making a few modifications. But these are also on a range for test fire if you guys are interested in coming in and giving them a try for yourself. Guys, if you like this video, hit that like button, share the video with your buddies, go visit us on Facebook and Instagram, and we'll see you next time.